Um, Hi everyone, welcome to our panel on the future of live music. I'm Chris Carey, Head of International Marketing at TicketSwap, an ethical secondary ticketing platform. And I'll be moderating today, so you won't hear too much from me. I've got some outstanding guests. Anna, would you like to introduce yourself for us? And we'll kick off.
Hi, I'm Anna Scholen. I am heading up the festivals and concerts at Live Nation in Sweden. Been with the company for 20 years this year, and have been a promoter as long as I can ever remember. And I also hoping to put Lollapalooza back in Stockholm after our 3-year hiatus after the great first year. That's pretty much what I do.
Amazing. Is it fair to say the last year has been the most crazy of the 20?
Yes, absolutely. Well, most crazy, but also, not in the good crazy way.
I look forward to hearing about some of the good crazy a bit later on. Natasha, how are you doing?
Like Anna and everyone in a crazy year, but I am an agent. I've just started up a company with my brother called Mother Artists. He runs the management side, mainly with idols, and I run the live division, also booking idols, but 30 other great artists. Like Anna, I've been an agent for 20 years, so working at almost every major agency, so I'm coming with lots of experience, and yeah, just proud mum, like Anna, of 2 young children.
Amazing. Martin, how you doing?
Yes, hello. I'm Martin. I'm the chairman of Svensk Live. We are a non-profit organization here in Sweden. We organize about 230 members. It's all from promoters, organizers, venues, from grassroots to Live Nation. And we have also some associated members, also destinations, which I am represent. Destination, I'm a DMO of Eskilstuna. And my background is in the music business, record companies, both Polygram and Sony. Also had a management company for over 20 years, managed one of the biggest acts in Sweden called Kent. So that's me.
Perfect. Thank you very much and great to have you here with us. The first question I'd like to ask, what's the current state of the market in Sweden? And I think, Martin, I might throw that to you and then to Anna, just to kick us off and set the scene here.
There is no market. Actually, we just have a cap of eight people for having shows. Actually, there were some shows this weekend for 8 people in Örebro, but high ticket prices, exclusive, but that's not a sustainable business model. But yeah, but we have no market at the moment. That's my conclusion.
Okay, so market for 8 people at a time, a little bit of innovation happening to make that work. I mean, in terms of the outlook, maybe Anna, how you see the world now and where it might start to step to next with Sweden in mind.
I mean, it's an incredibly weird situation, I think, because we're at one hand, just like Martin says, we have no market. We've been in Sweden has been in a different place than many other markets, because if you go out on the street here, it's a pretty regular feeling. The schools are open, the shops are open, you have all of that, but there's no shows, no gatherings whatsoever. So in a way, I think it would be easier to grasp the situation if you had like Tasha's been sitting in lockdowns, right? And that way you sort of, you feel what's happening in a different way. Here, it's just, we're not allowed to work. And it's a strange situation. So we're obviously hoping everything's going to be better soon, but it's also that we're looking at 22 being probably the busiest concert season ever. So we've just actually pulled our whole staff globally up lifted them from the sort of furloughs or similar things where we can. In Sweden, we put our whole staff back full time to work from May 1st. which is a difficult situation because we really, we have to get them, you have to get people started again after a long time not doing the work and get ready for a 22 season. So it's sort of a mixed mode of we're not doing anything, and at the same time, we're going to have to do a lot very soon, and we got to get ready for it. So I think that's my reflection, that it's a very interesting time right now, getting everybody back to speed and at least looking ahead and thinking we are going to have a business to go back to not too far from now.
That's really interesting. And that element of kind of being rusty, there was some feedback from the recent London events that have gone very well, or sorry, recent UK events that happened in Liverpool. And the backstage staff were rusty. Getting hold of the right people from front of house was hard. Getting hold of the right gear. There's a whole infrastructure element to this that is more than just putting on shows, that needs to catch up and shake that rust off.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the office people like us have been sort of working through with, I mean, we've had to cancel a lot of shows in the past year and rebook and all that, and being halftime politicians to get sort of our industry heard. But the production guys and the freelancers and all those lovely, fantastic people that we are so dependent on, many of them have not done anything close to a show for a long time. And so we have to start early to make sure we get the teams back together and get prepped and ready for what's coming.
Absolutely. Natasha?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think also for all of us in this industry, and I would agree with you, Anna, since hearing, I mean, Brighton's, the cases have always been quite low and it's quite a liberal mindset that everyone has. And I think the biggest struggle I've had mentally is, like you say, Anna, now when I go out and everybody's living a normal life where it's just an inconvenience for them that they have to wear a mask in a shop, and our industry is still screaming to be heard. I think what's been amazing is how quickly all of us have transpired in our jobs on what we have to do. And I've forgotten, like Anna said, it's lots of rescheduling and cancellations and dealing with that side of things, and the government and fighting and almost having to retrain what the job itself is. But it's amazing how quickly mentally we adapt. Like now, I used to hate rescheduling tours, and now it's normal. I get up in the morning, right, which tours need to be rescheduled? Let's hold 4 runs. Let's do this. Let's chat to that. Like, I cannot wait, like everyone, to be an agent again, and the excitement of doing shows. So I think we also it's about, a lot of us, I think, have just been kind to each other and ourselves. That's a really important part of it, because yes, the world is coming back, but it's an extreme amount of trauma that we've all had to deal with as well. And so I think a big part of the restructuring is just going to be checking everyone is okay through this. I mean, often my husband's like, you are working 12-hour days. Like, what are you guys doing? And it's just kind of trying to create opportunity and always, we've got lovely Boris, so that's another story with the announces that the false announces that he makes. But it's been such a mental challenge, I think, for all of us, that I can't wait for things to come back. And as Anna said, there are so many great people that haven't had opportunity or support, that we're just desperate to get them back in work as well.
And especially in an industry like ours, where you care so passionately about what you do, and that part of your identity, well, as an artist performing and getting the recognition, but also as someone who works in live music and gets to go to the shows, your endorsement and enjoyment of your job is watching that outcome. Yeah,
and I think I never realised how important people were or are for me as a person. That actually, I think for a lot of us, we tolerate all the admin side of this job because of the release that we have at the end of it, the results that we see at the end of it all, for all of us. And we haven't had that. And it's tough. It's really tough.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, the journey we've all been on, as you say, transforming your day job into the worst bit of what you used to do and then finding joy in it. I mean, actually, I want to ask about the rescheduling. Of course, for yourself, you're looking after Australian artists, you're looking after, I think, some American artists, obviously idols from the UK. How's that been? Just keeping an eye, presumably, on the global situation and what the rules are in each country.
It's been so this is it. You have a good night's sleep, you wake up really positive, and you're like, right, okay, we're going to go. And then all of us, and you spend all day on the phone to every market, every country, every promoter, and it's exhausting because every government thinks differently. The speed of vaccinations or how effective that is different in every market. So I think for a lot of us, the idea of UK touring or touring in one market, we can get our heads around, but to think about cross-country touring, we've also got Brexit to deal with our side, although I think it's a welcome break that the pandemic's here, because it's allowing us all to kind of work our ways around it, of which this is one thing I think is this is an amazing industry for dealing with problems and finding solutions. So, we're not going to be negative by that, but I was really lucky. One of my new pop acts, Thomas Headon, he's Australian, so he went home for a bit, and so I was able to get him shows and building him. But it's hard. I think another thing is we all thought that this summer might happen, but because it isn't, pretty much, I think we're just about there on most of it not happening. You've got to think you've got 3 years worth of bands wanting to get into 1 year. So it's not a case of, hey guys, get on the festival next year. You've now got poor festivals and promoters like Anna having to deal with 3 years worth of incredible talent, having a deserved reason to get on one summer. So in a way though, you've got to be honest, communicate, transparent with your managers, have really good relationships, tell it like it is, and just do your best. And this is again part of the mental challenge we're all dealing with, that a lot of festivals are rolling over. There just isn't space.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the pressure on fans to go as well is going to be huge. Anna.
It's also how far in advance we book, right? But by the time you get, for 20 years, for the festivals for 2020, we had talent pinned in penciled in slots for 21, right? And 22 already. So by the time you start rolling over the shows and you have all that, just like Tasha said, it's like, what do you do with it? I now have 3 acts that I'm supposed to have in this one slot. And that's been a challenge, to making sure, you want to be good to all your artists and managers. At the same time, you got to keep the festival relevant, and it's a struggle just logistically to make that work, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated enough when you've got everyone fighting for the same slot at a venue. When you've actually promised the headline slot at a large festival to 2 people because there were 2 years, that's a very tough conversation. No comments on that one. I'll move on. Do we think we'll see a change in the advance bookings? Do we think things will have to move more quickly going forward? So if we look at the industry we're moving into, will we find a lot less lead time on bookings and a bit more flexibility, a bit more spontaneity?
I think the domestic artists will have a broader chance to perform at the festivals, because they are in the country, they don't have to travel abroad. So I think the domestic artists will have a chance to furthermore get some shows, because the pandemic has gonna put some restrictions on the traveling. That's one trend I can see in the future.
I would like to think that we won't, after next year, we won't have to book so far ahead every year for all of us. I think, yes, when you've reached a certain level as an artist, or you're at the height of your game, you can plan and book stuff 2 years ahead if it's stadiums or arenas. But you've got to think about these young artists starting out, where it's very early planning, where you've got to start building them slowly. You've got to see where where the audience are, how the record's doing, you know, and work on it. And I think a struggle for a lot of us has to be, look, we need to book a tour a year and a half ahead, and we need to challenge for the date, which means that we have to commit to the date and put money down to the venue. And you've got these poor young guys or girls or bands just not ready or able to think that far ahead. So I mean, my hope, I don't know about you guys, is that I just think it's about doing your best next year, being very strategic and honest, and coming up with a plan that realistically works. And then hopefully by 2023 there's it's slowed down and there's a bit of normality again.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think you have to. I think there will be different developments depending on size of act or where they are in their career, basically. You know, I think the big shows, the arenas and the festival headliners, I think those are going to be booked earlier nowadays than they have previously, because the avails are not there. So, you know, anybody wanting to come out in the fall of 22 now, there's not an arena date in Europe. And I think people are going to be scared of having that situation and ending up where they can't get a tour when they need it for the new music and everything. So I think there's going to be lots of more early scheduling when it comes to those. But I think we as promoters also need to keep, you know, keep the smaller end of the bill open for longer than we do now, so that you can get those acts. You know, you want the act in a certain moment in their career to play the certain festival or a certain venue, you know. You don't want to have them at the club show when they've already exploded. And you know, you want to make sure you're providing them with the right platform. So I think that it's dual. Like, part of it's going to have to be done earlier. Part of it, we should just be more flexible and wait longer.
And we have the consumer also. That's they want to make the decisions on buying tickets later and later. So how do we get the consumer to buy tickets in advance to secure the festivals, to secure the venues? So that's going to be a challenge that we see, I think.
That's actually a really interesting point, I think, because Sweden as a market has always been very, you know, people buy tickets early. You know, we do have the big on sales on every level where you release the tickets and they go. That's going to be interesting to see when we're back in full business, if that's still the case or if people now wait longer. You know, we've had pretty good rates of people are holding on to their tickets. The fans have been good to the promoters and try to not, you know, return their tickets if they don't have to. But it will be really interesting to see where that goes when we're back to full business. Yeah,
we did a survey recently. We asked together with Ticketmaster 16,000 of the ticket holders, the purchases, and I think it was 77% of those rather keep their ticket than to get it back to the promoters. So I think that's a really high percentage, and I think we have to look at the terms of ticketing to see how we can make the consumer hold the tickets in that percentage over time. I think that's important.
And it's been interesting to see how a bit more flexibility has come to the consumer in this incredibly difficult time. And I wonder if some of that convenience led, that some of that flexibility might stay in a positive way.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, will they? I mean, thinking of myself, you know, nowadays you expect to have a flexible, anything you buy or book, you expect it to be flexible, right? You know, I'm not going to book a hotel room that I can't really change, or something I do with my kids, or, you know, that you're expecting it that if they get sick, we can cancel. How's that going to look in the future? I think that's interesting as well.
Absolutely. In a world of convenience where you can do almost anything on demand, it's a very interesting challenge to the pay early model.
Yeah, I think the music industry have not been if you compare to the travel, or, there's usually different rates. You can choose to book a hotel with no flexibility at a cheaper rate, but you can also choose to book your flexibility at a higher rate. We haven't really had those kind of things in the ticketing world. And I think you're going to see more and more of those kind of solutions to give the customer the choice to be flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. And pricing in that convenience, pricing in that flexibility for those who want it, giving an option for those who haven't. Definitely interesting.
Yeah, and I think that a process needs to be put in place, because you have to think about a lot of artists where we have rescheduled sold out tours to next year. So, and there's no insurance for the bands, for the promoters, for the venues. So that's also a pretty scary situation for a band to be in, where understandably the ticket buyer, the punter, does have control, but even up until the show date can get refunds, whereas the artist doesn't have any flexibility, any insurance. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, for me, it's great to see markets open up. It's great to see, as crazy as Boris is, an ambition to start opening things and allowing us to do tests, which we're grateful for. But we're all keeping our eye on the winter, because a lot of stuff has been shifted to November and December and January, February. And I'm interested to see how insurance comes in play for the long term with this as well. That's going to play a big role in decisions. So I think processes are important to be put in place, because this is a really what's the term, it's a scary way to do this business for everyone at the moment.
Absolutely. In a business that was already risky to start with.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting watching the different government approaches to underwriting insurance. The UK government, for my money, has been very slow to help for something that has a very low marginal cost compared to the Dutch or other places around Europe. The Germans very quick in, Austrians very quick in.
I mean, we shouldn't even get into that subject, because I can speak for an hour on that alone. It drives me absolutely nuts how both the governments have been so slow in coming up with reasonable schemes, but also how that showed that we were not prepared as an industry to tackle this. And we have a great I think cooperation over the boundaries between like Martin's, like Svensk Live, for example, but we were not prepared to show. We were organized from a cultural point of view, but not from a financial point of view. We were not prepared to show the government how much tax money we contribute with, and how much our industry is worth, and how we, how the whole ecosystem works. And that's been a huge focus for me, and actually a personal way of getting through this, I think, this year, is to focus that sort of energy where you're used to working a lot and solving a lot of problems, to try to just focus that on this instead. And it's just, in Sweden, we had 1 week, they said, in a meeting with us, they said vaccination passports is absolutely out of the question for shows. It's unethical. No. The next week, we read in the paper that Sweden will now be the first ones to roll out the European vaccination passport. And you're like, it goes so quickly. And I think the governments have had to adapt to the situation and take on new things that a week ago they thought it was unethical. The next week they realized that's the only way for us to get moving. And it's not their fault. They're just trying to adapt as well. But it's been extremely frustrating, I think.
And you're on that roller coaster ride with them. They're keeping up best they can. You're getting it secondhand as fast as it's allowed to be communicated. Far from comfortable. I think you put it perfectly, that we can communicate our value from the arts and what we bring culturally, but when you're then competing with, and it's a horrible way to look at it, when you're competing with other sectors for help from government, and you've got to argue your case. It was a very difficult argument to make, often from a standing start, where we didn't have economic case studies to show what our value was and so on.
Which is what venues and companies and, you know, for, I don't know what it is in Sweden, guys, but, you know, in UK there were grants available from, you know, grassroots venues to, you know, it started with people not sure if they actually counted or what is the value that the government look at to give you a grant. And, you know, quite upsetting, exciting to see certain people supported, and amazing and also heartbreaking to see someone else who was just as deserved not getting it, maybe because they didn't fill out the process in the way, you know. So I people would pay people to fill it out the right way, but that's just that's how bureaucratic systems always been.
Yeah, but I think the way in Sweden that's been interesting is that it's also been a, you know, we are a country politically that is you know, all the things that you love about Sweden in a non-pandemic situation, they also provide a certain element of difficulty in a pandemic situation, because we put a value-based, you know, like the cultural value. There's the support systems that's been for the pandemic here for the cultural sector has not been financially based. They've also been based on, is this an important cultural type? Or, you know, for example, the opera and the state theater in Sweden had their record years this year because, you know, they kept all their grants and it's been able to work, while you have small promoters all around the country who are struggling, and talent, you know, in terms of the talented sound guys or sound girls and you know, whatever you have that is not getting any work and have to become a teacher or something.
Yeah,
so
our support system is rigged for the public sector and the institutions. So when the business side of it also wants some grants, they have to look at this other sectors, not in the art sector. You have to compete with the transportation or the export of steel or something. You know, so it's hard to compete on that level when you also have the arts and culture side, which are, the system is rigged for that, and we can see that when the art, the Kulturdepartementet, our culture department, got applications for the grants, 50% of those who did the application was new to them. They had never been in contact with them. So that tells us that they just work in that closed filter bubble, if you will call it. So I think that's really interesting. I think that will also open up a new discussion of a new system of grants and support from the government.
It's almost like infrastructure is really important, but when it comes to individual humans, that needs a little bit more work and understanding and support.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think it's so important that we now do like what Svensk Live is doing, you know, putting an effort into actually looking at how much do we contribute, you know, what's our industry, including all parts of the industry, venues, ticketing, concerts, restaurants, you know, what is it worth in just monetary, looking at the monetary. And I think that's really important because we're going to need that for the next time something like this happens, which hopefully it won't, but we need to be better prepared. And it will be interesting to see what that does as well when we can present those figures. You know, does that give us a better, is that the final straw that's going to actually put pop culture into, you know, the more, what do you call it, the plush seats in the theater?
Yeah, hopefully we'll have those figures by the end of the year. So
yeah, and I think if I look for the silver lining in that, the fact that people are working together much more closely as a result of the crisis, hopefully can endure, and we can put a more united voice to government with better information, better facts, and so on. Can we talk about talent? Because I'm concerned about talent in this time, and I'll tell you my concern. My concern is that in a world that is increasingly risky, giant artists don't play stadiums, they play arenas. The guys who should be playing arenas play mid-level. The guys who should be playing mid-level play theatres. The guys who should be playing theatres have to play clubs. And the less proven, emerging, interesting talent of tomorrow gets squeezed just by the way things are just now. And I just want to put that out there and see if that's a risk, and if so, what we might be able to do to help ease that.
Oh, sorry, Tash, were you before me?
You go.
I actually think it's the other way around. I have to say I don't agree with that statement, because I think everybody wants to play bigger now than what they are supposed to, because and they want the promoter to take that risk, or a lot of agents, none present here, of course, wants, you know, to take that, to play the big arenas when you're not ready to play the arenas, which is incredibly risky. So I don't think I think it's an amazing time for talent, to be honest, because a lot of people have had to reinvent and come with really interesting new concepts. But I think we need more clubs. I think we need more places to come and play to in general. You know, we have too much talent to fill. We can't get the rooms. So that's my view on it.
Yeah, I think it just depends on who the artist is before the pandemic hit, because you have, if you're an artist that has other income, whether it's through streaming deals you've done, whether it's you sell a lot of merch online, whatever it is, you have the privileged, which I call it the privileged artists. So those on the top level who can take 3 years out, be at home, write, create in their own studio they've made, and it's all great, and wait and hold back. But you have, I think those most hit are, you know, the artists that were just signed, that had to go out, that are dependent on building live, that might not then have the support of labels to carry on forward, and they need to eat and they need to pay their bills. So I'm worried about losing some incredible talent on that level through no fault of their own, but where you just have to work. And again, a mental challenge. I mean, I'm glad you said that, Anna, on agents. I mean, I like to think, or pride myself on taking the right steps for bands, on always, you know, being at a level where you sell out. And I very much lean and work with promoters that I think know more than me, that are more skilled than me in the market, and that I try and listen to. You know, next year is not your normal year, and so everyone is going to be playing venues they shouldn't be playing. You know, for me, I've just tried to pick the 3 main markets or 4 main markets, get the venues, and you're just going to have to make do with others. I mean, you're going to see some incredible routing on tours for next year.
It's like
that,
an arrow.
you know, that, you know, you just say to the manager, look, this isn't based, we're not bad promoters or agents, and they're having a giggle. It's all over the place because there just isn't the infrastructure there. And again, a big worry for me, I agree with Anna, we need more clubs, and they're the ones most in danger. You know, I'm getting calls daily about having to change spaces because it's not going to survive. So that's the biggest challenge. What production companies are going to still be here? What promoters are still going to be here? You know, that it's about solving. The longer this goes on, the more we really need to look at what we can do to help that side of things.
Yeah, I mean, the production it's a real issue, you know, like Sweden's biggest production company no longer have a storage in Sweden. Now they moved everything out of Sweden because it's just that's how they've had to survive. And you know, we're going to be, I think we're going to see that's going to become an issue when we come back in full force in 22. It could also be the opportunity for, you know, entrepreneurial people to start new stuff, but I'm hoping they're going to do it soon.
It's the risk. Yeah, also with Brexit, lovely Brexit in England.
Yes.
You know, again, like I said, people are finding solutions. No one's sitting down going, oh, you know, it's so you're going to see a lot of companies already setting up in Europe to avoid the carne issues that we're going to have, the impossible issues that weren't discussed or agreed for, you know, a band doing European touring. So and I think, you know, a lot, again, it's about being transparent and honest with your managers and your teams. You know, with festivals, the production might not be as high. Bands are going to have to just play like the old school amazing live band that they are, without all the bells and whistles, which I think will be fine anyway, because people are just going to be so desperate. But yeah, it's just it's keeping an eye. That's the stuff that worries me more. And I think a lot of bands probably aren't taking as many risks, but on the flip side, the music and the songs that I'm being sent from a lot of artists through this is mind-blowing. So, you know, you always know from trauma comes some pretty incredible stuff.
Exactly.
Amazing. And I think sometimes that creativity and that art can get lost in these conversations. I mean, we've been so knee deep in dealing with government, grants, insurance, all the practicalities around what is the most amazing thing in the world, which is the artists themselves and the writing.
Which is crazy, because these people in government who maybe don't have an understanding of the infrastructure or those dealings, they all go home and will stick on music in the background and will, without realizing, will be dealing with their trauma and stress through incredible music. It is such an important tool. It's not just about the staff or the team or employees. Music in general has a profound effect mentally on us all. It is so important.
Yeah, that's actually been a big topic of discussion for us with the authorities, because the authorities in Sweden, you know, the health, I don't even know how to translate that one. The CDC of Sweden, let's put it like that. But there's such a focus on sports and the importance of sports for the young kids and teams, for, you know, playing in a team for the kids and everything. And I'm not saying that's not important. I think it's incredibly important. And you know, I've always been very involved in team sports my whole life. But I think there's equally a huge part of these young generations that where the music now has that exact position. You know, like, you need to get around music. You're not going to see your favorite team, you're going to see your favorite band. You're not going to play with your teammates, you're listening to music together or playing music together. And you know, I think that's equally, that's been a struggle, I feel, to reach through with that they should be counted. What this does to a young generation when you're not allowed to gather, and when you're not allowed to experience music together. And that's put a lot of, I think, you know, some of these streaming concerts that's been done, you know, where the audience also participates in a different way, I think is amazing, because I think you need that. You know, you need to listen to music together, not just by yourself.
Absolutely. And some research came out of the UK industry recently saying 65% of live music fans have missed music for the boost it gives their mental health.
My 6-year-old is Anna's met him, but he's done festivals since he was a baby, and you know, the effect on him through lack of music and social interaction has been huge, which is why, I mean, I'm grateful for the schools to be open, but he constantly talks about the experience of how he's going to scream when he gets to a festival. It's like, it's all consuming. And I think we need to give credit to the younger generation that is often severely lacking by, I'm going to include even my generation or older, saying that they're, you know, what are they giving up, or how selfish they are. And I think I think they've often given up more than any of us, because, you know, yes, they're affected and they want to protect their grandparents, but it's a secondary thing on them, this virus, and they've cut off everything. I mean, imagine going to uni, which is such a life-changing experience, and being in your room the whole time studying. You know, the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see the effects of this. It's so important.
And I think it's going to be interesting for fans coming back into that experience, that I think there's going to be a duty of care that falls on the industry to make sure that when confronted with that thing you've missed so much, that actually we've got facilities in place to help people through an emotional re-engagement with music.
100%. I mean, it's again a positive thing is to your point, Chris, like the conversations that I'm having with a lot of tour managers or teams on how they want their tours to be, you know, whether it's staff there for, you know, gig buddies to help people with autism or social disabilities, but as you say, you know, dealing with trauma of coming back, that's got to be, you know, to the environmental aspects of touring as well is a huge part of this, that actually, you know, I'm sure if we look at the figures for all the lockdowns we had when all the industries were shut down, the positive impact that has had on this earth, which is also, you know, of huge importance in survival. So that's, you know, like Anna said, we're all very used to working all the time, so it's great to see a lot of people taking the lead and putting their efforts into touring better.
I'm actually interesting when we're talking about the kids, you know, obviously subject close to my heart and Tasha's as well, but I'm excited to see if we can maybe influence. In Sweden, we've had this, you know, 13-year-old age limit on the majority of the shows for sound for dB limit reasons. And I think what the pandemic has shown that in Sweden, the way we've handled it is to put a lot of what do you call it, responsibility on the people going into a store. You know, it's not the store it's basically, you can come into the store, but you got to follow certain rules, but it's up to you to follow those rules, you know. And I'm hoping that we can work with that in the future now and come up with creative ways where we can create areas where you can go to shows with your kids under 13. You know, we've told the authorities forever that we can create a section where it won't be above the limit, or we can make sure that everybody has hearing, what do you call it? You know what I'm talking about.
Earplugs and protection.
Earplugs and protection. But I think it's so important to be able to go and see shows at an early age and with your parents. You know, you want to go and see shows with your parents when you're young and experience music together like that. So that's something that I'm hoping the pandemic now has shown, that we can maybe tackle that issue and get the age limit removed and be a little bit more flexible. Now we have it on 2 festivals. We don't have an age limit, but everything else is pretty much 13. So
but also amongst the workforce, that the positives of it. I mean, I always worked from home. I'm quite unapologetically have lived very lucky to just work in this industry where I see my kids all the time. You know, it's just non-negotiable, and it's been a pleasure to see on Zoom meetings kids going crazy, not just with me but with everyone. And I'm just hoping for, you know, an understanding that it doesn't have to be separate. You know, a lot of dads loving being at home, seeing their kids, a lot of mums who felt guilty about making a decision, not having to make a decision. So how can workplaces change for better? I mean, that's one of my top missions as mother artist, which is aptly named. You know, turning a vulnerable, something that I always felt was maybe used as a vulnerable point against me, I'm just turning into a strength. You know, I'm hoping for better care for everyone as well from this.
That's brilliant. And I love that it's been you who's brought up mental health 2 or 3 times naturally, that you're thinking holistically about all of this, not just from your artist point of view, but actually the wider impact as well. I think it's really good.
We're just humans. Everyone just needs love.
It's a great theme for a song.
Good song.
Even promoters.
Even especially, I mean, another thing I'm in, because obviously, like you were saying, Chris, everybody's working really well together because there's a common goal and interest. I am very interested to see what comes, and I'm sure Anna, you're experiencing already that empathy that's perhaps now taking a sidestep when it's getting to next year and beyond. So it'd be interesting to watch what comes. No comment. You can say no comment.
No comment.
Yeah.
But I think also we have another crisis, as you mentioned, at the same time, the climate crisis, and I think we really have to focus on that furthermore now, when we have worked together on this crisis. I think we can also work together on the climate crisis, and I think green touring is going to be a real topic 21, 22, 23. And we have a project at Svensk Live called Wintopia, where we're looking at 3 different sectors within the touring. It's food and beverage, textiles, and transportation. And we are looking to reduce those impacts. We haven't set we're going to make a manifest around that, and we're going to present that later this year. So that's going to be really interesting. And we're doing it together with the sports industry as well, and the destinations and the live entertainment business, so we can do it all together in an ecosystem. I think it's really important that we have to focus on as the next crisis, or the crisis that's really emerging.
Yeah, and I think the pandemic has given us a bit of time for self-reflection, which we might otherwise not have had. And I think it's now more important to fans as well. So obviously we all live on the planet. It matters to us, but I think it's more top of mind now. I think it's more of a focus now. And I think it would be great to see how artists tour in a more efficient, more effective way, and how they kind of lead as well. Because I think artists can shape culture in the most outstanding ways. I think it would be really interesting to see.
Wasn't it Massive Attack who had a hearing in the UK about this green touring?
That may be true.
Yeah.
I'm going to say no comment. I'm not sure. We'll edit that bit out.
You have to have, okay.
For them or against them, Martin?
Sorry?
What the Massive Attack was putting a case forward or something against them? Forward
to touring only with sustainability and focus.
Yeah.
With the UK government, something like that. There was a hearing.
Cool. I will have to look that up.
Google, yeah. Pause.
But that's actually something as well, now we've seen the test events, all over Europe. We're using test events to get more knowledge about how we can do, how we can handle the pandemic. I'm also seeing that, we should be able to do test events in terms of how can we get greener. That's something that we can learn from. We could do test events globally and learn and use that knowledge from how we can reduce our footprint quite a bit, I think. And I think we're going to see that much more coming as well, that we're going to be sharing the information, like you said, Martin. I think we want to work together on this. So the good thing with the pandemic sort of work that's been is everybody's shared the information. Everybody had one goal, and you're sharing the information to be better. And I'm thinking that we're going to continue sharing information on how to be greener. I'm hoping. I doubt that we're going to be working as much with our competitors and in the same way as we are now for the long run. But I think that around the specific topics like getting greener, I think we need to continue that work across the board.
Absolutely. So taking that note of positive things coming out of this, looking ahead, there was obviously an abundance of live stream shows, some of which were chargeable. Do we think fans will keep paying for live music in that sense? And does it create an opportunity for artists and potentially for promoters to sell a virtual ticket as well?
I think that's just a new revenue stream that people have discovered, as is the food and beverage, ticketing, the transportation, the hospitality. Streaming is just another revenue stream that you can combine for the artist and for the promoters to the venues. So I think that's gonna be one important section of the income for the artists and the promoters and the whole ecosystem. But it's not going to be a substitute for live music, of course.
It's an add-on, and you know, to the point of the environment. If an artist has a launch, you know, they can pick it in their hometown or city and then stream it elsewhere. But it can never replace, you know, that feeling of walking in to a show. And you know, for me, the live streams that seems to do well are those that use clever technology, or you know, really pushing the boundaries. But you know, for your just rock and roll band, you just got to be there. But it's an incredible add-on, and you know, with VRs and all of this technology coming, you know, it certainly can't be ignored of its future importance.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree. I mean, it's jumped it forward a long way. The real thing, very hard to compete with. Sorry, Anna, I think you're going to say something.
Yeah. No, I agree exactly. It's very hard to compete with, but I love the add-on. I mean, I think it's and you know, we've done global research that said that majority of people feel that they want to go to a show more. Watching a streamed live show makes them want to go to a real live show, so to speak, more. And I think it's an add-on where you can access a greater, you know, financially accessible to, you know, it's expensive to go to shows and to go to a lot of shows, and maybe some acts won't, looking at the green aspect of it, play as broad of a routing as they would pre-pandemic, and it gives access to people in different places to see a show. So I like the add-on a lot, but it can never, you know, I'm old, I can never replace standing at a concert, of course.
But the thing is, you have to develop the format, because the best live streaming shows I've seen during this pandemic has been those intimate, small, when you're in the rehearsal, tiny desk concerts, when it's really intimate. Those are the best, because you don't want to like a live show on a live stage. You know, it's a like a DVD concert. You want that intimate, innovative experience that you, and maybe some interactions with the fans at the same time when you're doing it, you're talking to the audience in real time. I think you have to develop that format in some sort of way. Then it can be a complement to the live touring and the live music as a experience.
Yeah, I think absolutely. So if I try and recap where we've got to so far, because we've covered a lot of ground, I think if I look for some of the wins coming out of the pandemic, I think we're talking about talent having a chance to stand out, people taking more risks, playing bigger rooms and making sure fans can get to shows, which was a surprise to me, but I like it. I think the idea that people want to give the fans maximum opportunity to see them by taking that extra risk, albeit shared with the promoter, on playing the big rooms and doing whatever is necessary to make it happen. I think it's very promising, very encouraging. I think the attitude from fans is promising. They want to hold on to tickets. They want to get to shows. The energy is there. They haven't lost interest. If anything, the opposite in this quiet time. And then on the industry side, there are some better things around greener touring. There's some good things around kind of more coordinated, more joined up, more efficient, more effective at making our case to government, as well as actually being a bit kinder to ourselves, working from home, making sure you can see the kids, making sure that there's actually the human side of the element of the industry is taken into account as well. So, I mean, lots of ground covered there on the future of live. Is there one last thing you'd each like to say, or something you particularly like to highlight on what excites you about the future, or what you're most looking forward to when we start getting back to?
I would like to, this summer, when we had we had a 50 person cap this summer, and there was one initiative that they sold 10,000 tickets over 200 shows, and it was an agent called Kulturaktiebolaget who made these shows, and this was average Joe who booked these shows and had 50 persons in their gardens, and the artist just picked the guitars and PA and put it in the car and just drove to the destination where they're going. So I think there's also a counter trend that people would like to see more intimate shows, and they are prepared to pay more, and the artists are also prepared to go down in size in production, to just jump into the car as they did when they first started, because this was not the high level artist, but it was the mid-level artist in Sweden. So I think that's a counter trend that I think we're going to see more of in the future, actually.
I mean, I'm not the only one that started a company in this time. So just seeing the entrepreneurial side of what comes, I love people, meeting challenges with solutions. So I'm really, keeping my eyes open and being part of the story to see that change. But also, I think, for those who know me well, it's kindness and empathy, and just treat people like humans. Simple.
Perfect.
Simple.
I can't wait for 22 season, to be honest. I think I think the first show we get to do is going to be a mind-blowing situation, considering how much pressure gone into this period, and how much how much work's been done to try to keep everybody reasonably healthy, and I think it's going to be an amazing year coming up when we're back into business. I think it's going to be, the volume is, we're going to have a lot of shows, but I also think the feeling, I expect the feeling and when people get to start going to shows together again is going to be amazing. And that mixed with just what Tasha's talking about, the entrepreneurial, we're going to have to old school it, a lot of it, because it's just, we have a lot of catching up to do, and there's going to be issues that we haven't worked with before, and that combined with a big season coming up, I think there's going to be a lot of old schooling it and problem solving and fun, and I think people are going to be happy that we're back in business, and I really can't wait for that. I think it's going to be amazing.
Perfect. I mean, there's not a better note to end on. Martin, Tasha, Anna, thank you so much for all your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.